So Papoose just went on camera and casually confessed to something so embarrassing, so unbelievably revealing, that the entire internet had to pause the video, rewind it, and ask themselves if they actually heard what they think they heard. Because what Papoose admitted inside that elevator on Drink Champs was not just a confession. It was a full psychological profile, delivered out of his own mouth, with a smile on his face, in front of a live camera, on a platform with millions of daily viewers. And once you hear what Papoose said about why he was glued to Claressa Shields every single second of every single day, you will understand why people are now saying this entire situation is about to explode in a way that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, is prepared for. And trust me, by the time we get to the part where I show you what Remy Ma has been quietly doing behind the scenes while all of this chaos is playing out on the main stage, you will understand exactly why so many people online are saying this is not going to end well for anybody involved. Not Papoose. Not Claressa. Not even the fans who have been rooting for the whole thing to survive. But let's just get into it, because there is so much to unpack here that I don't even know where to start. Guys, before we even dive into the specific moments that have everyone spiraling, you have to understand the context of how we even got to this exact point in the story. We are not talking about some random celebrity couple that popped up out of nowhere last week. We are talking about one of the most respected lyricists to ever come out of New York, a man who built his entire reputation on being untouchable with a pen, and a woman who held Papoose down through circumstances most people would never survive in the first place. And now we are watching that entire legacy get dismantled in real time, one interview at a time, one tattoo at a time, one reckless comment at a time, one viral clip at a time. And the wildest part of all of this? The cracks did not just start showing up recently. According to a lot of people who have been watching Papoose and Remy Ma closely for years, the cracks were always there. We just were not paying attention to them. We were too busy buying the fairy tale. So let's start with the moment that broke the internet this week. Papoose appeared on Drink Champs, and there was this elevator segment, and in that elevator, Papoose was asked about being physically attached to Claressa Shields at the hip. And instead of laughing it off, instead of giving some polished, media-trained answer designed to protect his image, Papoose looked dead into the moment and admitted that he used to be glued to Claressa everywhere she went. And when Papoose says glued, his exact energy was that he was stuck to Claressa, could not move, would not move, everywhere she stepped, he was one step behind. And then Papoose explained why. And this is the part that sent the internet into a complete meltdown. Papoose said it was not because he is a cheater. It was not because he cannot behave himself. Papoose said it was because he was worried. Worried about an athlete. Worried about another rapper. Worried about an executive. Worried about, and I'm paraphrasing his own words here, anybody with a good hairline. Anybody with a job. Anybody that smelled good. Anybody breathing, essentially. Now, I need you to sit with what Papoose just described for a second. Because Papoose did not describe love. Papoose described surveillance. Papoose described a man so consumed by insecurity that he turned himself into a full-time security detail for his own relationship. And people online immediately clocked it. They said, wait a minute, Papoose just admitted, on a platform with millions of viewers, that his entire attachment style is built on fear. Fear that any man with a decent haircut and a paycheck could walk in and take everything he thought was his. And child, the comment sections were absolutely ruthless, because people started asking the obvious question. If Papoose was this worried about losing Claressa Shields to literally any breathing man with a job, what does that tell you about how secure Papoose actually feels in that relationship? And more importantly, what does it tell you about how Papoose moved inside his marriage with Remy Ma for all those years? Because remember something. For over a decade, Papoose was branded as the ultimate loyal husband. The man who held Remy Ma down through her darkest days. The man who wrote letters. The man who showed up when nobody else did. The man who became the poster child for ride or die love in hip-hop. That was the entire brand. That was the foundation of Papoose's public identity. That was the reputation that opened every door for him for the last 15 years. And now Papoose is sitting inside an elevator on Drink Champs joking about being physically glued to a whole different woman because he was terrified of losing her to any random executive with a good hairline. The whiplash is not lost on anybody. The internet has receipts. The internet remembers. But if you thought the elevator confession was messy, wait until I tell you what happened right after. Because while Papoose was on Drink Champs telling the entire world about his insecurity, Remy Ma was out here living her absolute best life. And I mean that literally. Remy was spotted out at events looking incredible, getting hugged up, getting her flowers, getting the kisses, the smooches, the respect from the whole culture, moving through rooms like the heavyweight Remy has always been. And the contrast was so loud it was practically screaming. On one side of the internet you have Papoose in an elevator explaining why he could not let his girlfriend out of his sight. On the other side of that same internet you have Remy Ma, unbothered, glowing, collecting love from the culture like she never left. And people noticed. Oh, they noticed. The side-by-side energy was so dramatic that fans started saying it looked like Remy had already won a war she did not even have to show up to fight in the first place. And this is where it gets so much worse for Papoose, because at the exact same time all of this was happening, Claressa Shields was out here moving in a way that has a lot of people asking whether Papoose has completely lost control of the situation he created. See, there was this moment where a fan asked Claressa a question online. And the question was petty, sure, but it was the kind of petty that comes standard with being in a public love triangle. The fan basically asked Claressa if she was listening to one of Remy Ma's songs, thinking about Remy, before she went into the ring. And Claressa's response is where everything went left. Because Claressa did not ignore it. Claressa did not rise above it. Claressa said she does not listen to trash music. And then Claressa doubled down with language I am not even going to repeat here, but the energy of what she said was that Remy Ma is bitter, washed up, and beneath her. Now hold on. Hold all the way on. Because this is the same Claressa Shields who, not that long ago, was on camera being extremely careful about how she referred to Remy Ma. And I need everybody watching this to remember this exact detail, because this is the detail that proves how much the temperature has changed inside this situation. Back when the relationship first went public and people were pressing Claressa about being with a married man, Claressa was very deliberate with her words. Claressa told interviewers, if you're going to call him her husband, make sure you call her his wife. Claressa corrected people in real time. Claressa said Papoose filed for divorce, he is serious about me, so I am not with somebody's husband. And look, you can debate the logic all day long, but the point is Claressa was keeping a certain level of respect in her language. Claressa was saying the ex-Claressa was saying the wife. Claressa was being careful. That was the posture. Respectful, measured, strategic, media-trained. And now? Now Remy Ma is trash music. Now Remy Ma is bitter. Now Remy Ma is washed up. Something changed. And people online have a very specific theory about what that something was. And this is where the tattoo enters the story. Y'all, Papoose got a tattoo. And not just any tattoo. Papoose got a tattoo that people immediately started calling his access pass, his loyalty badge, his proof of commitment stamped directly onto his body for the whole world to see. And the internet has been absolutely merciless about this tattoo, because the timing of it lines up almost perfectly with the shift in Claressa's energy. Before the tattoo, Claressa was measured. After the tattoo, Claressa is calling a rap legend's catalog trash in public. And the theory that has taken over the comment sections is that Papoose got that tattoo specifically to put a battery in Claressa's back. To make Claressa feel secure. To make Claressa feel chosen. To silence whatever doubt she had been carrying around from watching all the speculation online, from being 2 steps away from Papoose in the house while the whole internet debated whether he was really done with Remy Ma. Because think about it. Claressa had been hearing the whispers. Everybody had been hearing them. The rumors that Papoose was not really all the way in it. The rumors that the divorce was messy, that feelings were still tangled somewhere, that this whole thing was a rebound situation dressed up as a love story for the cameras. So what does Papoose do? Papoose goes and gets permanently marked. And the moment that ink dried on Papoose's skin, Claressa's whole demeanor transformed overnight. She went from make sure you call her his wife to calling Remy Ma's music trash in front of the entire world. And a lot of people are saying that is not a coincidence. That is a woman who just received confirmation, and is now moving with the confidence of somebody who believes she has nothing left to worry about. Nothing left to be careful about. Nothing left to lose. But here is the problem. And this is the part where I need everybody to really lock in with me, because this is the part that changes everything. The confidence Claressa is moving with right now. A lot of people believe it is not actually hers. There is a growing theory, and I mean a massive, spreading, increasingly convincing theory, that Papoose is using Claressa Shields as his mouthpiece. That everything coming out of Claressa's mouth about Remy Ma's music, about Remy being bitter, about Remy being washed up, is actually Papoose's voice wearing Claressa's face. And before you dismiss that as a reach, wait until you hear the evidence. Because when you lay everything out in order, it becomes very hard to unsee what is really going on here. Let's start with the obvious. Claressa Shields is a boxer. One of the greatest to ever do it in her sport, no question about it. But what does Claressa Shields know about evaluating rap music? What does Claressa know about catalog, about pen game, about who can and cannot rap in this industry? Because when Claressa called Remy Ma's music trash, she was not speaking as a casual fan with an opinion. Claressa was speaking with the confidence of somebody who has been listening to a very specific narrative behind closed doors, night after night, for months. And whose narrative would that be? Who would have a decade's worth of built-up feelings about Remy Ma's talent, about Remy Ma's success, about Remy Ma's place in the culture? Exactly. Exactly who you think. And this is where Remy Ma herself enters the conversation, because Remy recently sat down for a full-length interview, and what she revealed in that interview basically confirmed everything people had been theorizing for months. Remy Ma told the world that not only did Papoose not write for her, despite years of speculation that Papoose was the pen behind her biggest records, but that a huge amount of Papoose's animosity toward her came from exactly one place. Jealousy. Professional jealousy. The kind of jealousy that eats a man alive from the inside for years and years and years. Remy described how every single time they did interviews together, somebody would ask the same question. Who raps better? Who is nicer with it? And Remy said Papoose's heart would break a little more every single time, because the answer was always her. She is better. She is better. She is better. And Remy said Papoose really wanted it. He wanted to be the one people pointed to. And this is a man, according to Remy Ma's own words, who literally sat down and made an album every single month for an entire year straight. 12 albums in 12 months. And nobody purchased them. Nobody. Meanwhile, Remy is out here making significant money off old work. Off catalog. Off records she made years ago. Remy pops out for a verse here, a feature there, jumps on a record with Fat Joe or somebody else in the family, and the checks keep coming. And Remy said, plainly, that Papoose envied that. Papoose envied the demand. Papoose envied the fact that Remy Ma had the financial leisure to not even need to do music anymore, while Papoose was grinding out album after album that the world simply did not want. Now you tell me. Does that sound like a man who thinks Remy Ma makes trash music? Or does that sound like a man who has spent years being tortured by the fact that Remy Ma's so-called trash music outsells, outstreams, and outearns everything Papoose has ever made in his entire career? Because the math is not mathing. You do not spend a decade in competition with somebody you think is beneath you. You do not fill 12 albums in 12 months trying to catch up to somebody whose music does not matter. The obsession itself is the confession. The obsession is the receipt. And this is exactly why people are saying the trash music comment did not come from Claressa at all. Because think about what it would mean if it did. Remy Ma is not just some rapper. Remy Ma is a Grammy-nominated, platinum-selling, battle-tested legend who has been in this industry for over 2 decades. For Claressa, an outsider to music, to publicly declare Remy's catalog trash is not just disrespectful. It is strategically suicidal. Because now the entire hip-hop community is looking at Claressa sideways, asking what exactly she plans to come with. People are already clowning her, saying Claressa's opinion on rap carries the same weight as a karaoke scorecard. And that is the generous version of what they are saying. So why would Claressa say it? Why would a woman with everything to lose in the court of public opinion take that swing, unless somebody in her ear was loading the clip for her? The answer everybody keeps landing on is Papoose. Papoose, who knows he cannot say it himself, because the moment Papoose calls Remy Ma's music trash out of his own mouth, the entire culture turns on Papoose instantly. Papoose would be blackballing himself. Papoose would be a punchline by morning. But if the words come out of Claressa's mouth, then Papoose gets to have his feelings aired out in public while keeping his own hands completely clean. Papoose gets the disrespect delivered without the consequences of ever having delivered it himself. And people are saying that is exactly what is happening here. That every time Claressa goes louder, every time the language gets more reckless, that is Papoose turning the volume up through a speaker he does not have to pay for. And y'all, the disrespect has been escalating by the day. It started with the careful language. The ex. The wife. Then it became dismissive. And now we are at trash music, bitter, washed up, and worse. Every exhibit is worse than the last one. And meanwhile, where is Papoose in all of this? Where is the man who built his entire public identity on loyalty and respect? Papoose is quiet. Papoose is letting it happen. Papoose is standing right next to the chaos, watching his girlfriend tear down the mother of his child, the woman who held him down for over a decade of his life, and saying absolutely nothing. And to a lot of people, that silence is the loudest thing in the entire story. Because silence, in this situation, is agreement. Silence is endorsement. Silence is Papoose standing behind the curtain while Claressa performs the show Papoose wrote. But now I have to tell you about the part of this story that genuinely changed how a lot of people see everything. Because while all of this disrespect is flying around, while Papoose is letting his new relationship be weaponized against his old one, Remy Ma did something in that interview that nobody expected. Remy defended him. Even now. Even after everything. Even after being called trash music, washed up, bitter. Remy stood up for the man who is currently letting all of that happen without lifting a finger. Remy told a story that, honestly, reframed the entire narrative around this situation. Remy talked about an incident where Papoose messed up publicly. And I mean Papoose messed up badly. There was a situation at a venue where things went sideways, and Papoose ended up running off into the night, literally with a mask on, and nobody knew where he went. And the people around Remy, her people, her family, her circle, they were ready to handle it. They were ready to make Papoose answer for embarrassing Remy Ma like that. And Remy stopped all of it. Remy stood in front of the whole thing and said, "That is my husband still. That is my daughter's father. Y'all cannot do nothing." Remy said yes, Papoose was absolutely wrong. He was dead wrong. He was out of pocket. But not on her watch. Whatever happens behind Remy's back is one thing, but nobody was touching Papoose while she was standing right there. And Remy said that is how she handled Papoose through everything. Through all the tormenting, all the secrets, all the chaos that nobody else ever saw from the outside. Remy protected Papoose. Every single time. Remy absorbed the damage so Papoose would not have to. Remy even said she cannot go back to that venue anymore, in that entire state, because of how everything went down. Remy paid a price for protecting Papoose. A real, lasting, personal price. And Remy paid it without hesitation, because that is who Remy is. That is who Remy has always been. Now contrast that with what is happening right now in real time. Remy Ma spent years shielding Papoose from the consequences of his own actions, and today Papoose is standing 10 feet away while Claressa Shields calls that same woman bitter and washed up to the entire internet. The woman who stopped her own family from touching Papoose is now being torn down in public while he holds the microphone stand steady for the person doing it. And this is why people are saying the disrespect is not just messy anymore. It is dangerous. Because Remy Ma has been quiet. Remy Ma has been graceful. Remy Ma could have gone on every radio station in America and unloaded a decade of receipts, and instead she has been saying, make sure you call her the ex, keep it respectful. But everybody has a limit. And the people who know Remy, the people who have watched her whole career, are looking at this situation and saying the same thing. It is only a matter of time. Because here is what Claressa does not seem to understand. And honestly, here is what Papoose does not seem to understand either. Remy Ma's quiet is not weakness. Remy Ma's quiet is strategy. This is a woman who has survived things that would have ended most people's careers, their freedom, their entire lives. And Remy came out the other side selling records, selling out shows, standing on stages while Papoose, according to the internet's most brutal jokes, was performing in parking garages while security tried to clear the lot. And look, that joke is cruel, but it exists for a reason. The gap between their careers has always been the elephant in the room, and now we know, from Remy's own mouth, that the elephant was sitting in their living room the entire marriage. Every dinner. Every conversation. Every silent car ride. The elephant was there. And speaking of those parking lot performances, this is where the conversation about Papoose's music gets really uncomfortable for him. Because people have started going back through his catalog, through those 12 albums a year, and they have noticed a pattern that is now going viral all on its own. Fans are pointing out that in an alarming number of Papoose's records, there is always a moment where the bars start drifting toward money. Not money Papoose has. Money Papoose needs. There is always a verse somewhere asking, if he was down, would you give him some? If he needed it, could you cut the check? If things got bad, could he come look for you? And people have started calling it what they believe it is. Dry begging. Bars that sound like bravado until you realize the man is essentially working a tip jar into 16 bars at a time. And when you combine that with what Remy revealed, that Remy was the one with the demand, the one with the leisure, the one making money off old work while Papoose pumped out albums nobody bought, suddenly those verses do not sound like fiction anymore. They sound like documentation. Now, I know there are people watching this right now who think all of this is unfair to Papoose. That Papoose is allowed to move on, allowed to find new love, allowed to get whatever tattoo he wants and stand by whoever he chooses to stand by. And sure. That is all true. But that is not actually what people are upset about. People are not upset that Papoose moved on. People are upset about how. You do not get to build a legacy brand on loyalty, on being the husband who wrote letters and held it down, and then turn around and supervise the public dismantling of the woman who made that brand possible in the first place. You do not get to stand silently while your girlfriend calls the mother of your child trash, bitter, and washed up, and then expect the culture to keep calling you a stand-up guy. The brand and the behavior are in direct conflict, and the internet exists specifically to find conflicts like that and drag them into the light for everybody to see. And for Claressa, the warning signs are flashing red. Because right now, Claressa Shields is walking around with borrowed confidence, talking with somebody else's vocabulary, fighting a fight that was never Claressa's to begin with. And the people who have watched this exact movie before are all saying the same thing. Claressa's mouth is writing checks that her situation cannot cash. Because what happens when the tattoo stops being enough? What happens when the next rumor starts, the next headline hits, and Papoose needs Claressa to go even further, say even more, disrespect even louder? At what point does Claressa realize that she was not chosen as a partner, she was deployed as a weapon? And weapons, as everybody knows, get discarded the moment the war is over. Because let's be really honest about the power dynamics inside this situation. Claressa is the one taking all the public damage. Every reckless comment, every viral clip, every headline, it all has Claressa's name on it. Papoose gets to stay clean. Papoose gets to stay the nice guy. Papoose gets to keep his legacy intact while Claressa absorbs every single unit of backlash the internet is generating. And if that is not the clearest sign of who is really in control of this situation, I do not know what is. Claressa thinks she is the champ calling the shots. A lot of people are starting to think Claressa is the champ getting played. And meanwhile, Remy Ma is still out here getting hugged up, looking good, collecting her money off old work, saying little to nothing publicly, and letting the entire situation bury itself in real time. Which, if you know anything about how these stories go, might be the most terrifying detail of all. Because the quiet ones are never quiet forever. The people who know Remy best keep repeating the same warning. Remy protected Papoose through everything, through the torment, through the secrets, through the public embarrassments, and she did it all with her mouth closed and her hands up to shield him from what was coming. If Papoose and Claressa keep pushing, if the disrespect keeps escalating the way it has been, day after day, exhibit after exhibit, then one day they are going to find out exactly what it looks like when Remy Ma decides that protecting Papoose is no longer her job. And on that day, all those receipts Remy never pulled out, all those stories Remy never told, all that truth Remy swallowed to keep his image clean, that is all coming out. And a tattoo is not going to protect anybody from that. And I want to go even deeper into why this whole tattoo situation is so much more layered than people realize. Because on the surface, sure, a man got a tattoo for his girlfriend. It happens every single day. But this is Papoose we are talking about. This is a man whose entire career is built on being calculated with his image. Papoose does not do impulsive. Papoose does not do accidental. Every move Papoose has made in the public eye for the last 15 years has been strategic. So when Papoose walks into a tattoo shop and comes out with permanent proof of loyalty stamped on his body at the exact moment the internet is questioning whether he really left Remy Ma, that is not romance. That is public relations. That is a press release written in ink. And Claressa, who has been navigating months of speculation about whether Papoose was really done with his marriage, saw that tattoo and read it the way it was designed to be read. As confirmation. And the moment Claressa read it as confirmation, the entire tone of her public appearances changed. Suddenly Claressa was not the woman being careful about how she referred to the wife. Suddenly Claressa was the woman calling that same wife trash. Suddenly Claressa was cracking jokes, calling names, escalating with every single interview. And people who study relationship psychology online started pointing something out. They said that this is textbook. That when somebody who has been quietly insecure suddenly receives a public sign of validation from their partner, they often overcorrect. They go from too small to too loud, too fast, because they are trying to prove to themselves that the validation was real. And the theory is that is exactly what happened to Claressa. Claressa got the tattoo as her proof, and then she started performing her security so hard she overshot the target completely. Because make no mistake about it. Calling Remy Ma trash music is overshooting the target. Calling Remy Ma bitter and washed up is overshooting the target. There is no version of Claressa's career, her legacy, or her long-term public image that benefits from being remembered as the woman who tried to erase Remy Ma from hip-hop with her boyfriend's talking points. And yet here Claressa is, doing exactly that, apparently convinced that the tattoo means she is protected. Apparently convinced that Papoose has her back the way she has his. Apparently convinced that this is love, when a growing number of observers are saying what she is actually starring in is a very expensive commercial for somebody else's insecurity. And let's talk about that word for a second. Insecurity. Because Papoose confessed to it in the elevator. Papoose used different words. Papoose said worried. But worried is what insecurity sounds like when it is dressed up for television. Worried is the polite version. And once you accept that Papoose is a man operating from a place of deep, career-long, self-inflicted insecurity, everything else in this story starts to click into place. The 12 albums a year. Insecurity. The dry begging bars. Insecurity. The obsession with being called the better rapper next to Remy. Insecurity. The need to physically follow Claressa Shields everywhere she goes. Insecurity. The tattoo. Insecurity. The silence while Claressa attacks Remy. Insecurity. Every single move in this entire timeline can be explained by the same word. And that word came out of Papoose's own mouth on Drink Champs. Papoose diagnosed himself in public, in real time, and nobody in that room stopped the tape. Now let's talk about Remy Ma one more time, because I do not want anybody watching this to walk away thinking Remy is a victim in this story. Remy is not. Remy is arguably the most powerful figure in this entire narrative, precisely because Remy is doing the least. Remy is not chasing headlines. Remy is not going on radio tours. Remy is not making diss records aimed at Claressa. Remy is not commenting on the tattoo. Remy is not commenting on the elevator confession. Remy is doing something far more dangerous than any of that. Remy is letting the story tell itself, and the story keeps landing on Papoose and Claressa. Every single day. Without Remy having to do a single thing. That is what mastery looks like. That is what somebody who has lived through actual pressure looks like when they choose to sit down and watch the amateurs work. Because Remy Ma has been in situations where the entire world was against her, and she came out on the other side with her career intact, her legacy intact, and her respect intact. So watching Claressa Shields try to bulldoze her with borrowed talking points from a man who could not out-rap her on his best day. Remy is not worried. Remy does not have to be worried. Time is doing the work for her. And this brings us back to the theme that has been running through this entire situation from the very beginning. Everybody is talking. Papoose is talking through Claressa. Claressa is talking through what she thinks is her own voice but is really just an echo. Fans are talking in every comment section on the internet. Interview hosts are talking. Podcasters are talking. Everybody is talking except the one person whose voice would actually end this whole thing in a single sentence. Remy Ma. And that silence, that specific silence, is not empty. That silence is loaded. That silence is a chamber with a round in it, sitting on a table, in a room that Papoose and Claressa have been walking through blindfolded for months. So when you put it all together, the elevator confession, the jealousy admission, the tattoo, the trash music comments, the mouthpiece theory, the parking lot catalog, the dry begging verses, the venue story, the decade of protection, the borrowed confidence, the deployed weapon, the loaded silence, what you are really looking at is a story about a man who was so worried about losing everything that he might end up losing the only thing that was ever actually protecting him. And the internet can feel it. That is why every clip of this situation goes viral within hours. That is why the comment sections look the way they do. People are not watching a love triangle. People are watching the slow-motion collapse of one of hip-hop's most carefully constructed images, and everybody is waiting for the exact moment it finally hits the ground. And the wildest part is, this is still escalating. Every single day there is a new clip, a new comment, a new exhibit for the file. The gap between who Papoose told us he was and who Papoose is showing us he is gets wider every single week that passes. And Claressa keeps going further and further out on that limb, apparently not realizing that the person holding the other end of it has a very well-documented habit of eventually letting go of things he claimed he was going to hold forever. And here is one more piece that nobody is talking about enough. Remy Ma has receipts on Papoose that go way beyond music. Remember Remy said Papoose was not even paying most of the bills. Remember Remy said if Papoose had been paying 90% of them, they might not even be in this current situation, but he was not, and here we are. That one line alone reframed the entire marriage. Because for years, the public assumed Papoose was the anchor. Papoose was the steady hand. Papoose was the provider carrying the household while Remy handled the star power. That was the narrative. And Remy just casually blew that narrative up in a single sentence during an interview, and Papoose has said nothing to correct it. Which, in the court of public opinion, means Remy was telling the truth. Silence, once again, is confession. Silence, once again, is agreement. Silence, once again, is Papoose losing a war he did not even realize he was in. So this is where we are right now. Papoose is silent about the finances. Papoose is silent about the disrespect. Papoose is loud in elevators about how worried he was about executives with good hairlines. Claressa Shields is loud about a music catalog she has no business evaluating. Remy Ma is quiet in the way that changes weather patterns. And the internet is watching every single frame of this, screenshotting every comment, saving every clip, building a timeline so detailed that when this whole thing finally implodes, nobody is going to be able to rewrite the record. The record is already written. The record is already public. The record is already viral. And that is why so many people online are saying the same thing right now. That this is not going to end well for anybody except Remy Ma. Because Remy is the only person in this story who is not losing something in real time. Papoose is losing his image. Claressa is losing her credibility. The relationship is losing the last shreds of privacy it never really had in the first place. And Remy is just standing there, hugged up at events, cashing checks off old work, letting time do what time does best. Which is expose people. Slowly. Then all at once. So now I want to hear from you, because this one is genuinely dividing people. Do you think Claressa Shields is really the one calling Remy Ma's music trash, or do you think that is Papoose's voice coming out of Claressa's mouth on autopilot? Do you think Remy Ma is going to keep protecting Papoose, or are we watching the final days of that loyalty in real time right now? And be honest with me, did Papoose's elevator confession about being worried about any man with a job and a good hairline change how you see their whole love story, or was it always this obvious and we were all just choosing not to see it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I read every single one, and something tells me this story is nowhere close to being finished. And if you think what happened this week was messy, wait until you see what has been quietly moving behind the scenes that nobody is talking about yet. Trust me on this one. You are going to want to be subscribed when the next chapter of this drops, because based on the pattern we have watched over the last few weeks, it is coming a lot sooner than anybody expects.